Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative. Prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Okay.
Intellectual.
I have nothing planned, so y'all, I hope y'all got something to talk about. Let me try something.
Intellectual stew.
They changed all my stuff up on me. Okay, y'all come on in the house then. When y'all come in, don't forget to share it, please. Come on in, share it, share it, share it. And I own what y'all are on. So whatever y'all want to talk about, the phone number's there. Let me put the link in the chat. Because I'm gonna need y'all's help tonight for real. Big bro, what's up, Gerald Parker Jr.?
Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
I'm almost ready because, like I said, we just flowing tonight. But I want to put the link in the chat.
Intellectual stew.
All right, what's up, Stacy? What's up, big bro? Are you older than me, Stacy? I don't know. Either way, what's up? What it do? Hey, share it. Go ahead and like it and heart it or whatever you're gonna do. Do that now. And let's go ahead and get this conversation started. Like I said, I'm on whatever y'all are on. Whatever y'all are on, I'm on it. All right, let me go and cut this music off. All right, what's up? What it do? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirkland. Listen, go if you would, if you have not shared this thread, go ahead and share it. Let me know where you're listening from. I just pinned the link on the chat. So whatever, if you want to come on and talk about something that's on your heart, something that's going on in current events, I'm on it. I'm on it. Let's talk about it. Last week we were heavy on the topic of respect. We talked about is respect earned? Or do we automatically give people respect just because of their human decency? Because truth be told, if a person just because they've not earned your respect, does not mean that they've earned your disrespect, right? So if they've not earned your disrespect, then at least just give them the common courtesy of respect. I got you by a few months. Okay, cool. All right, but what's up, man? Good to see you, Stacy. Stacy's a praying man too. I appreciate Stacy. When we tried to do this little prayer thing on the morning, couldn't get a lot of participation, but I appreciate the ones that showed up. Stacy was on there, and Stacy would call him up. And when Grandmama used to say, Grandmama said, you don't just call him up, but you call him right. And that's what Stacy used to do, is he would call him in the morning, and I would appreciate. I mean, it was so powerful at 6 a.m. to get men together, and we would literally pray, but then it got to the point I probably should have held on a little longer. Sometimes I let go quicker a little. I'll let go a little quicker than I used to. There was a time I would hold on to something a little longer, but age and maturity and the ability to filter faster, I will let go. I will let go. I'm not like the songwriter that said, I almost let go. I will let go. But listen, it is open mic night. I have no notes. I have no plan. I don't have any of that. So the phone number is there. The chat box is there. If you have something that you want to discuss, something that's been on your heart, hey, come on with it. Let's talk about it. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a perspective, and I don't mind sharing my perspective. You know what I'm saying? Because what I've learned, and so, I was before the show, I sent out a couple of texts and told some people I was kind of empty, and then they started talking. They said, "Man, just hey, what's up, Kim? What's up?" That's my cousin in Chicago. Send me some Garrett's popcorn. Now, you know what I got to do? They used to live in Chicago. He's in Phoenix now, and he has some popcorn. I'm gonna give him a plug. Maddie B's popcorn. Black owned, and man, when I tell you he has this cheesy caramel that's like that Chicago mix, it is amazing. I ordered some the other day. He had a special where he gave a free large bag if you bought something I ordered. So I bought an order the other day, and that's my snack. I enjoy it. But anyway, somebody hit me up, right, and they were like, talk about life because people are hurting, and you hear conversations now like never before. And like, if y'all are watching this, will you all like it, heart it, whatever, and share it? So some other people that might want to talk can come in. Because like I said, this is a safe space. You can come in, you can share whatever's on your heart. But we live in a tough society now, man. And much of our society is fueled by fear, right? Because fear has a way of causing people to react. Fear has a way of causing people to move, whether you move forward or you move backwards or you just stand still, and stop, get paralyzed in your current state. That's what fear does, right? And so we get to a point where as we grow, as we get older, as we mature, especially spiritually, right? We learn how to replace, enjoy your corn. Okay. We learn how to replace fear with faith, right? And the way we replace fear with faith is we start to get a whole lot more of those God did it testimonies, right? And what's a God did it testimony? A God did it testimony to me is a modern day miracle when we see it happen before our eyes. Because a lot of people are looking for, I think we have gotten to a place and posture where it's hard to recognize a miracle that takes place right before our eyes. Because when we think about miracles, we think about God splitting the Red Sea and children walking across on dry land. We think about things like Jesus walking on the water, in the fourth watch of the night. We see all of those types of things, and we see Jesus taking 5 fish and 2 barley loaves and kept breaking it. And when he got through breaking it, he had fed 5,000 men besides women and children. But miracles aren't restricted and limited to only those types of things. A miracle is anything that you do, that God does for you, that you couldn't have done for yourself. For instance, if you didn't have a way out, if you couldn't see a way out, if the bill was due and you didn't even have a job, but somehow it got paid, that's a God did it testimony, right? And if you got a God did it testimonies, when you get enough of those God did it testimonies, then your faith is fueled. And as your faith is fueled, then you are furthered towards your future. Does that make sense? So I believe that in this society that we live in, I think my TV is on. Hold on, I can't hear. But in this society that we live in, people are hurting, man. People are going through it. You got people that put on, what's up, Jennifer? Hey, what's up? The line is on. So if you want to pop on, pop on. You got people who are putting on smiles as masks. people that have been hurt, right? And I'm gonna tell you something. I had a real revelation the other day. Dennis, I hope you're there. But I had this revelation the other day, right? Because I'm not gonna say I've been on an apology tour, but I've had to apologize over some things, over some decisions I made, right? Now, and you know why I had to apologize over the decisions I made, Dennis? Because I made determinations. I mean, let me back up a little bit. I've had to apologize by looking at some situations in the past that I looked at through unhealed eyes or through unhealed lenses, right? And now that I'm healed, now that I'm healed, I've looked at some of the perspectives from the past, right? And the pain that was caused in that moment was caused, or it was viewed from an unhealed place. Does that make sense? So because I was in an unhealed place, then I was easily offended. Oh God, this is good. Because I was in an unhealed place. See, Joseph, when you look at Joseph, Joseph of chapter 37 was totally different from Joseph of chapter 50. I'm gonna read your comment in a minute, Jennifer. But Joseph of chapter 50 has survived the pit, has gone through Potiphar's house, has been promoted in prison, has gone to Pharaoh's house. Now he's the prime minister. So now if he had just stopped at Pit Boulevard, he could have been offended. He could have said, "Oh man, my brothers threw me in the pit. Look what people did to me. People don't like me. People don't understand me. People always hurt me. People don't," and they'll have this pity party because I'm stuck in Pit Boulevard. But if I make it to chapter 50 and I'm healed now, I'm able to look at Pit Boulevard. And when I look at Pit Boulevard, the thing that I realize about Pit Boulevard is, watch this, it was necessary. Yeah. The stuff that you've grown through was the stuff that helped you grow through. Let me read Jennifer's comment because let me read this. Y'all help me out. This is, I'm not gonna do all the talking. She said, I was in an abusive marriage. He knocked my phone out my hand and the battery came off and it automatically dialed my pastor, and they were able to call the police for me. Super. Oh yeah, he'll do for you what you can't do for yourself. But the thing is you have to understand that life is about processes. We go through processes, right? Jacob said every round goes higher. You know, I start here, but then I go to the next level, and then I go to the next level. But it's some lesson that's necessary on the level that you're on that's going to help you handle the next level. I had a little brother call me before the show. And I didn't realize, I noticed he wasn't on last week. And I, that's my little brother. So I want to see my little brother every week because, he's with me. That's my boy. And no, he was on last week. I take that back. But later on in the week, he had a situation where they were at a function. And after they left the function, he was in his car with his family on the way home, and this, man, he's a good father. I mean, he told me he has 6 children, some of them are athletes, he's disciplined with them. We've had some private conversations. So he's a good dude. His perspectives are sound. He can defend whatever he's talking about. I really have come, even though I've never met him personally, I've really come to respect him, right? And so we're talking, Jennifer. And this brother tells me that he's with his family, and on the way home, his son has a seizure. 1-year-old son. I tried to get him to come on and talk about it. He said he's not ready to talk about it yet, and I respect that. But his 1-year-old son has a seizure. And when he has a seizure, what's interesting is the prayer that he prayed. He said, Father, God, I know my son is an angel. And I thank you. If this is all I've had was him for a year, I thank you for the time you've lent him to me. But God, if you need him back, you take him. Hear what I said. Hear what I said. He's with his family. His 1-year-old son has a seizure. He's concerned. His family's crying. Everybody else is crying. But for some reason, and he didn't use these words, but I'm going to use it. If he needs to correct me, please do it. He has an unexplainable peace. Calling the doctor, handling everything, didn't have time to break down. He had to be strong for everybody else because men have to do that, right? I took a lot of responsibility for things that I probably should have shared responsibility on. And the reason I took that responsibility, Dennis, is because I felt like I had bigger shoulders. I ride with it. Because men ain't supposed to show emotion, right? I went to my mom's funeral and I barely cried. I wanted to, and I did for a little while at home, but men aren't really. But in that moment, it wasn't him trying to be macho. It wasn't him trying to be masculine. It wasn't him trying to be egocentric or anything of the sort. What it was his faith standing up. Because let me tell you this right here. A faith that has not been tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. Because we can all talk about faith when money's in the bank and the bills are paid and the credit score is over 720. We can all talk about faith when we don't have any car trouble or we don't have to go to the doctor and the blood pressure is regulated and everything is well and swell and we on our way to heaven and enjoying the trip. Your husband ain't cheating on you. I mean, your wife respects you. All these things are well in your life. And you can talk about faith then. But what about when that faith is tested? Y'all gonna talk back? I need y'all to talk back to me tonight. I really do. I wasn't trying to preach. What about when that faith is tested? What about when God says, okay, just like he did Abraham, when he said, Abraham, take your only son Isaac up on the mountain. And when you take him up on the mountain, I want you to offer him unto me as a sacrifice. Abraham did exactly what God did. He told him to do. He took his son, put him on the altar, drew back his knife. God said, you don't have to do it. I just wanted to see if you would. There are certain things that God allows us to go through or he puts us through just to see how we're going to handle what we're going through. And look at it. I don't know if Dennis plays spades or not, but whatever he played, that was the card last week that God dealt to him. He said, I'm going to put your son in a situation and I just want to see how you handle it. And guess what? Somebody could testify he passed the test. He said, Lord, my son, I believe my son is an angel. I believe if your purpose was to loan him to me for a year, I'm okay with that because I had him for a year. Is that not a mature perspective? Is that not a declaration of faith? And I didn't have to read that in Genesis to Revelation. That was on a phone call because that was faith applied. That was faith activated. And see, that was God giving us miracles. And see, we could take that experience and learn from that experience. Does that make sense? Y'all ain't talking to me now. Y'all just sitting there listening to me tonight. I guess y'all want me to get off in a few minutes. I don't mind. But that's real faith. Let me ask you a question. What is something, because Jennifer gave us an example of a modern day miracle that she had. She said she was in an abusive relationship. What's up, Alicia? She was in an abusive relationship. Her ex-husband knocked the phone out of her hand. But when he did it, the phone automatically called her parents and they were able to call the police. Now, what if he knocked the phone out the hand and the phone broke or the phone didn't ring or anything of the sort? Then who knows what could have happened. But God will always, especially for those that have faith, he'll always put a ram in the bush. That's how you get out of the stuff you're in. It's not your human ingenuity. I know you got good credit, but sometimes you can't buy stuff on credit. I know you got a little change, I understand, but sometimes you can't afford it. And in those instances, in those moments, that's the time to lean on our faith. Y'all listen, we are, like I said, we're on open mic night, but I really wanted to share that story because it was a lesson. And when he called me, he said, "Big bro, you know, you're my Bible study. You know, you kind of introduced me to faith. You know, you kind of share things with me that I learned from." And to see or to hear him call me with that testimony, and we text all the time. You know, well, not all the time, but we text, you know, a couple times a week. But on that one, he said, "Can you call me?" Because he wanted me to hear that testimony. And do you realize how many people can benefit from hearing that type of testimony? You just don't realize. I mean, I'm gonna give you an example. When y'all remember a couple of years ago when Pops, my dad, had his heart attack, and he was in ICU, and I get messed up every time I talk about the story, but he was in ICU, and you know, the nurses got to do their job. You know, they have to prepare you for the worst. I get it, you know, but I don't do faithless talk. You don't know me, and I can't let certain things in my spirit, right? I just can't do it. I can't do it. So this lady comes to us and she's like, "You have to be prepared that your father might not be the same again. You know, he might be a vegetable. You know, we don't know, you know, so I want to prepare you." I said, "Oh no." I said, "No, we're people of faith. You know, we don't, you know, whose report will you believe? I believe the report of the Lord, and I believe that by his stripes that he could heal my daddy." So there was no middle ground for me. That's why I became a Google doctor, and Greg Settles, he was a nurse. You know, he started telling me everything that every machine meant and what the oxygen level was and the peak number and all these different things, because I'm watching progress, because I need to see milestones, you know, because I know sometimes some certain miracles are progressive. Some miracles are instant, you know, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That's the kairos, you know, because the kairos can be in a moment, but whatever it is, or it can also be progressive, right? So the miracle doesn't always happen in a moment, but sometimes it's progressive. Sometimes it's in stages. So I'm watching the oxygen level. I'm watching them do the dialysis on the kidneys, and the organs are still functioning, and you know, and then the more they put these fluids in him, he's urinating these fluids out, which is ridding his body of these toxins. That means he's still alive. Those are signs of life, right? So I'm watching these things, looking at these miracles, and this woman has a nerve to tell me that my father might be a vegetable, or he might not come out of the current state. I didn't hear it. I didn't want to hear it. But then all of a sudden, a stranger, somebody on Facebook, comes in my inbox and they said, "Don't you believe what that nurse told you?" I had a family member went through the same thing, and he's up walking and talking and normal and everything else. And I'm like, you just never know where your help's going to come from. You never know where encouragement is going to come from. And whether you know it or not, affirmation is like oxygen for the soul. When people start to speak life into you, it has a way of giving you breath. It helps you breathe a little bit better. What's up, Brittany? That's why, you know, I'm a real live introvert. I really am. You know, I can sit here and talk behind this microphone all day long, but put me in a room full of about 7 or 8 people or 10 people, and I'm gonna find a corner. You know what I'm saying? I'm going, you know, until I assess the room and I find out who I might be able to connect with. Right. So I gotta. What's up, Kawana? So I gotta watch, you know, who I'm kind of hanging with. Right. So I'm very cautious. So like last few years on my birthdays, I would sit in the bed like all day and read every comment, you know, like thank everybody, like everybody's post and do this. I ain't do it this year. And I appreciate y'all for liking me, but I didn't do it. Although I read the majority of them, because they kind of, everybody wants to be appreciated, right? Appreciation, affirmation. I mean, people tell you you're doing a good job. You know, people need that. Your children need that, and to know that everybody don't want to hear negativity all the time. Everybody don't want to hear negativity. I mean, I used to I used to real talk. Certain people would call me if they were negative all the time, Kawana. I would literally put DND by DNA by their name on my phone because it would be do not answer. Because I was in a season of my life where I had enough negativity going on my own where I didn't need you to pile on what was going on in my life. And I think that's the problem with a lot of us. That's why we can't heal, Brittany, is because, see, most people who are sick, they need to be quarantined. Have y'all shared this yet? If you haven't shared, because this is gonna get good in a minute. Because I like I said, I ain't got no notes. I'm shooting from the hip, and unless y'all stop me, we're gonna keep talking. But listen, most people, when they're sick, when they're or have a sore, when they're infected, they're quarantined, right? They get off by themselves. There's isolation that comes before healing, right? You got to isolate. Even in the Bible, they would put lepers in a colony. They would be off away from the healed folk. But what we got is a whole lot of folk, healed folk and the sick folk infecting the healed folk. And now the healed folk are sick too, instead of everybody getting off by themselves, getting stronger. So that's what, when the pandemic happened, it was kind of interesting, because initially everybody was talking about, let go through herd immunity, everybody will get used to it, and then a few people gonna pass, all that kind of stuff. But then we went through quarantine, which supposedly weakened the system. And then we came back out. It was just a whole lot of mess, right? But my thing is, as you're trying to heal, I see too many people trying to heal, Brittany, but they're bleeding publicly. They're bleeding in plain sight. And they don't understand that doing so has really weakened their position. See, when I was hurt the most, this is me, I can only talk about me. When I was hurt the most and I was around people, I really, Kawana, didn't want them to see me. So really, I was trying to hide in plain sight. I was in public because I was summoned to be in public, but the whole time I was hoping you didn't see me. Because the reason I didn't want you to see me is because the person that I was presenting, I knew it wasn't the best version of myself. I didn't. So, I got a little dog in the other room. She's Chloe. Y'all see me walk Chloe sometime. I call her Chloe's Chronicles. Chloe's about all of 8 pounds. She's a Yorkie. But when anything gets within eye shot of Chloe, Chloe would just start barking. If something's outside, she just barking because she's trying to scare something off before she has to face it. God, that was good. Hold on, I got to hit that one right quick. Hold on, y'all. That was good. That was good. That was good. Hold on. That was good. Hold on. I want to play my music on that one. Hold on. See, sometimes what we end up doing is we try to scare off something before we have to face it. So if I bark loud enough, then maybe you will be afraid of the bark, of the sound of the bark, and you won't approach me. See, it's kind of like scripture, where the scripture says something like, what scripture say? It says something, be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary is as a roaring lion. Because the scripture would have been just as effective saying as a lion. It was as a lion seeking whom he may devour. But the scripture specifically said, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary is as a roaring lion, because it's the roar that stifles the enemy. Does that make sense? And so if I barked loud enough, or if I stopped you, if I got you before you got me, then I wouldn't have to show you how weak I've become. Let me see what Kawana said. Kawana's watching on YouTube. Some of y'all, like I've said, if y'all want to start watching on YouTube, that's good. She said, I did that Sunday and Sunday before last, but the real saints called me out, and I cried because I was bleeding in plain sight, and I thought nobody saw it. Oh, people do it every day. But and the problem, and the reason why we don't want to expose ourselves, or reason we want to expose ourselves, or we want to be in the public, is because we think we might miss something. We think that's one reason. I can't say that's the only reason. But yeah, 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant. for your adversary is as a roaring lion. The lion is not the fastest animal in the jungle. So what it does is but it can creep real low and quiet in the grass. 400 or 500 pounds, creeping low in the grass. It can seize a prey not too far away. And when it gets up on it, it roars. And the stifle of the roar paralyzes the enemy. And I had somebody one time tell me point blank, and I thought we were cool. It kind of messed me up, but it did. John Wilson, he said, "Kirk, ain't nobody scared of you." And this is like a 60-year-old man told me some stuff like that. I'm like, why would you say ain't nobody scared of you? That's weird. You know, why would you say something like that? And he said, man, you got people around here scared to talk to you, walking on eggshells, thinking you're gonna embarrass them. And I said, ugh. I said, but I thought we were cool. We are. I said, so you saw me messing up like that. And you saw people forming this opinion of me, and we cool, but you didn't tell me. So I've used this before because Kawana, we talk about that mask. Dennis, we talk about that mask, right? And when you wear a mask, what's the purpose of looking in a mirror? So for years, I never looked in it. I've shared this story before. I could tie my tie driving down the street. I could brush my teeth while looking for my shirt in the closet. So I didn't look in the mirror, so I didn't see what other people saw. So, and when they didn't see it, or they didn't, and if they didn't tell me what they saw, then I didn't see it. I did enjoy my birthday. Thank you. If they didn't tell me what they saw, whether it was a flaw, a failure, or somebody that's why everybody needs somebody in their life that loves them enough to tell them the truth. Now Kawana Yancey, that's my homegirl. Kawana ain't gonna bite. Kawana ain't gonna bite she ain't gonna bite her tongue at all when it comes to me. It ain't. That's my homegirl from the crib. She ain't scared. She ain't scared, and we'll cuss each other out and then be cool in the next few minutes. And we don't even cuss each other out no more. We got to pass that one. I think both of us realize we can't win, but she'll tell me the truth. And you need people who will tell you that your stuff stinks, right? I got an issue right now that I'm dealing with in my family that's caused a rift in my family for issues that they've had with me when I was young, but nobody said anything. And I hate that because you get to a point where you allow things to escalate so much, and then now you want to explode. Right? Now you want to explode, or people want to explode. People want to, let everything come out now. Oh, here comes the truth, and everybody now. But we could have had a conversation. And that's my point. When you talk about that's why chapter 50 Joseph was so much different than chapter. I'm using a lot of metaphors tonight. I hope y'all are keeping up. I promise I am. I feel this though. But that's why chapter 50 Joseph was so different from chapter 37 Joseph, right? Because chapter 50 Joseph understood the process. Dennis Pittman, God have mercy. You owe me some Jolly Ranchers, please do. But chapter 50 Joseph is totally different from chapter 37 Joseph, because now he understands that everything that he went through in his life was necessary. The pit was necessary. Being set up, because Potiphar's house, I told y'all sometimes, if you get to a place of comfort, just because it's a place of comfort doesn't mean it's a place of destiny. See, comfortable doesn't necessarily mean that's the conclusion. No. Comfortable means that it's comfortable, but get your rest while you're comfortable, because if the journey's not over, Elijah wanted to stop at the juniper tree. He was requested that the Lord take his life, but in the same moment, he said, "No, I never meant for the tree. I meant you got an assignment on the apex of Mount Carmel." Some of you all are right now in the middle of your process. Some of you are right now. I don't care if you're 65, 66, 25. I don't care what place you are in life. Some of you right now are in the middle of your process. And because you felt pain, you thought that the pain wasn't profitable. So you're stuck on pause. But my job is to tell you, to adjure you, to encourage you that it's time to get out of being stuck in a state of stagnation and start moving forward. Now it's time to faith that it. Now it's time to elevate your faith, and you can't just depend on grandmama and them faith. Let me read what Stacy said. Stacy, y'all can call in and say it. Y'all can listen. Y'all can the link is in the chat. If you want to call in, you want to dial the phone number. But let me read this comment first. He said, I have 8 men from different walks of life. And the reason we still friends after 28 to 35 years is because we hold each other accountable without being angry. That's how it has to be. You have to love somebody to be able to tell them the truth. And I'm gonna be honest. Chapter 50 Joseph is different than chapter 37 Joseph. Chapter 53 James ain't the same. I'm not even the same as chapter 52 James. I'm sure not the same as chapter 50 James. And Lord knows, thank God, Holy Spirit, thank you, I'm not the same as chapter 35 James. Because now, as I said, now that I'm in a more healed place, I have to go back and look at the places where I thought I was wounded. See, because I heard an old preacher say every time they wounded Jesus, they were healing me. So everything that was happening then was really had a purpose for when my promotion came. Oh, God. Because chapter 50, Joseph had to look at chapter 37 and say, you know what? I was in the pit. And I was. All of us have been in the pit, Charlotte Childs. But see, my perspective of the pit, no, we just chatting. We just chatting. But if you want to start something, that's cool. You good? Hey, bro, don't do that. But my perspective of the pit from chapter 50 to chapter 37 has changed, AJ. That's a Mello. That's my homeboy from high school living out in Phoenix. He looked out for Trey when Trey came out there and played baseball, made sure Trey drunk water. Trey said, why you tell that man to keep calling my name? But anyway, but my perspective of the pit changes, right? The perspective, Charlotte, let me tell you why I stay. Let me tell you how it changes. I'm going to tell you how it changes. Chapter 37 version of Joseph would have said that he was buried in the pit. You know, they tripped, they threw me in the pit. They left me for dead. I was buried in the pit. But chapter 50 version of Joseph would say, no, I wasn't buried in the pit. I was planted in the pit. Lord. And see, if a seed is planted, it's expected to grow. And the growth comes through the processes of life. That's why Stacy, it makes sense when grandmama and them said, if I never had a problem. I wish I had somebody to finish that for me. If I never had a problem, I would not have known that God could solve them. That's where I am. And so when my little brother calls me and he says that his son has his 1-year-old son has a seizure in the car. Never had any history of seizures before. His sisters are in the car. Yeah. Let me put that on the screen. His sisters are in the car. Everybody's in the car. They see him having a seizure. Of course, the natural thing to do is panic. And little bro, I can certainly appreciate and relate to your testimony, because I won't forget how last year my little sister had passed away, and we were at the house after the funeral, after the repast. My little brother's out there with, it's hot. He has on some slacks and a button-down shirt. You know, he shoots a couple of balls, get ready to do his thing, but he's waiting on his clothes to get there. As all of a sudden, he just falls out, has an aneurysm. Everybody's panicking. They're trying to keep him from biting his tongue. We don't know if it's a seizure. We don't know what it was. None of that. And we found out he has an aneurysm, and there's fluid releasing on his brain. And I ain't gonna lie, I got mad at God. I said, God, what are you doing? And I might have said something else. I said, you just took my sister. You took my mama. You almost took my daddy. I said, what are you doing? I was so hot. I said, you cannot take my brother. I was angry. I didn't have the faith that Dennis had. Dennis, you got me on that one, bro. Because Dennis said, y'all listen to this, but those that are just checking in, Let me tell this story again. Yeah, and listen, y'all hang out for a minute. If you've not shared this, share it right quick. Go ahead and heart it, like it, talk to me in the comments, talk to each other in the comments, encourage each other. But let me tell my little brother's story again. I wish he would tell it, but I'm not gonna force it on him. But my little brother, if I'm telling it wrong, tell me I'm telling it wrong. But he said, this is what my little brother said. My little brother said they were at a family function. They were at a family function. Let's check out this story, Mello. They were at a family function. And he had 6 children, and they were, several of them were in the car, and they were on their way back, something like that. And anyway, the 1-year-old has a seizure, and and of course, his faith stood up in that moment. Listen to the story, Charlotte. His faith stood up in this moment because when his son had the seizure, he started talking to God, and he said, "God, I believe my son is an angel, and if you need him back, I appreciate you for the year you loaned him to me because I believe he's an angel." He prayed the prayer of faith in that moment. He says, "Lord, if you need him more, you take him. But thank you for the year that I had him." And he's not the church going, this cat. You know what I'm saying? He knows a little bit about faith. And I ain't gonna say a little bit, but he knows something about faith. And he says he gets a lot of Bible study from what we do here on Tuesday night and different things like that. But in that moment, Simpson, he said, "My son, God, I believe he's an angel. And if you need him back, take him. But thank you for the year that you gave him to me." And y'all worried about how you're going to pay a bill. And then then people got the nerve to sit on here and talk about 50-50 and who brings what to the table and all this stuff we're arguing about and all these hoaxes and all these pranks and all these things that keep us divided. Man, I was looking at a story earlier today. Everybody's sharing that whole story about the dude in Jackson, Mississippi. Number one, the story is a year old, about the dude who hacked into the Hines County Department of Human Services and sent out $2,500 welfare, $25 food cards to welfare recipients and all in credit. Did y'all realize that was a hoax? It wasn't even true. A simple fact check could have. He did it as a joke. Number one, if he had did that, I doubt very seriously he would only got $100,000 bond. He stole all them good people's money. But but that's the level of depression. That's the level of heaviness. That's the level of depth that so many have sunk to, that we're just looking for a good news story. We want somebody to win. AJ, it's open mic night. Whatever we are, like I said, I'm on whatever y'all are on. I'm on for about another 15, 20 minutes, and then. But if y'all want to have if y'all have any questions, hold on, I don't have the phone on. If y'all want to call, let me put the phone on. I'm sorry, I didn't turn the phone on. But yeah, I appreciate my little brother's testimony. I don't know if I would have had that kind of faith. And I do a lot of preaching. I do a whole lot of preaching. I do a lot of preaching. But I don't know if I had that kind of faith. I don't know. I remember one time my baby girl, Kennedy, I remember one time she had some form of alopecia and some of her hair was falling out. And I prayed to God and I said, "God, don't do that. Please don't do that." I just didn't know. Because I know what happens sometimes when hair starts falling out. So, but we took her to the doctor and she had a form of alopecia. So all those things, that's what we started at earlier tonight, is that some of us don't know how to recognize modern day miracles. It's tough. But as I started with, a modern day miracle is anything that God does for you that you didn't have the ability to do for yourself. My brother got a miracle in that car with his 1-year-old son that God said, "No, I didn't just loan him to you. I'm going to prolong his lease on life, and I'm going to keep him here but I do want you to know, little brother, that that God wrote that down in Lamb's Book of Life." He said, "Oh yeah, you passed that test. You passed it. You passed it." And that's okay, because you know what? So many people in the same position didn't pass the test. So many people failed in that moment. Let me read, because this is his testimony. I'm just telling it for him. He's going to tell it one day. He says, I truly believe he showed me that he'd covered me and mine so many times. So when it finally got hard, it was easy for me to keep that faith. But that's the same man that wakes up every morning and practices affirmations. That's the same dude that'll share his text on his page where he and his daughters are having conversations about dates with each other and how many times, and those conversations never conclude without them saying he love each other and calling her by a nickname and making sure she stays a young lady and and they're athletes, but he treats them like his little princesses. Man, what was that Dwyer said last week? He said a son receives training from his father and learns and is nurtured by his mother, but a daughter receives training from her mother and is nurtured by the father. Dennis Pittman is nurturing the world out of his daughters and training his son, and adored that. And in that moment when he called on, see, I think that's what Grandmama Nim meant. When Grandmama Nim Stacy would say, if I call him up and call him right. Could that potentially mean? I mean, Stacey, I want to do a show one of these days where we just bring up all of the old sayings that we used to say in the church. We used to hear Grandmama and them say it like, I'm glad my laying bed wasn't my cooling board and all those types of things. I really would like to unpack those and show what they meant behind the scenes. It would probably take some research. But anyway, in that moment, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, if you call him up and call him right, I think that means when that kind of points to the scripture that says the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous availeth much, right? That and the key word in that scripture is that it says fervent, effectual of the who? Of the righteous. So Grandmama said, if I call him up and call him right, I believe Dennis was in right standing when he called on God. And when you call him and you call him right, God is obligated to move. He might not move like we want him to move, but he's obligated to move. He's going to move. And in that moment, he chose to move on Dennis's family's behalf. So when somebody hears that testimony, guess what happens? See, this is what I like to see shared. We love to share the muck and the mire and the bull stuff, that we love to share all that. But I like to share this stuff because if somebody hears Dennis's testimony, guess what they'll say? That if God is not a respecter of persons, guess what? If he did it for Dennis, he'll do the same thing. And even if he doesn't, Stevie Robinson said, even if he doesn't, it does not change his ability. He could have done it. Could have done it. Told Abraham, you ain't really got to do it. I just wanted to see if you would. And now since you showed me that you would, now look over there. There's a ram in the thicket. I already took care of what you were concerned about. Can I tell somebody that the stuff that you are so concerned about, he's already gone way before you and made rough places plain and made crooked straight. But here it is. And let's make a full circle because I'm about ready to cut across the field if y'all ain't gonna talk back to me because I've been talking by myself all this time and y'all been letting me talk all by myself. But here it is. The part is that so many of us are fueled by fear. I don't really watch the news. Sure don't watch politics. Yeah, Lord. Sure don't watch because I got a 7-hole. I got what? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 noses, 2 nostrils. I said 2 noses, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth. I got to be careful what I take in. And I got to be careful what I put out with my mouth, what I say. John said speak. But I'm responsible for what I say. So I don't let all this negativity in my space. Because as we said earlier, that's infects my spirit. And then I end up doing what Brittany or what who was that earlier said earlier. I end up bleeding publicly when I should be trying to heal. I ain't gonna lie. And I got okay, here's another. Y'all don't want to talk to me. Okay. I wrote that book about being stuck on the couch. And for me, the couch was kind of like the couch to me was like the wilderness was for the children of Israel. I was on it. Kept going through the same thing over and over again, day after day, same routine. Couldn't even hardly sleep in the bed because the silence sounded like noise and the walls felt like they were closing in. So I was comfortable on the couch. And after a certain time, I became stuck on the couch. And it was like my wilderness. I was stuck in that same perpetual state over and over and over and over and over until God said that it was enough. But here it is. What I learned is that God still leads even in the wilderness. I get my water in. You don't believe me? Even in the Bible, read it. While they were in the wilderness, he gave them a pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. The fire gave them illumination at night when it was dark out there in the wilderness. The cloud gave them shape, gave them shade. What's up, Marsha? Gave them shade in the daytime to keep the sun off of them. Because even in the wilderness, he leads. You know what? But COVID wasn't for us like it was for a lot. You know, it was so funny to me when I watched during COVID and people started going through recessions and stuff. White folk were all online telling people how to sell their clothes and do all this stuff. Man, we've been doing rummage sales and all, you know, and how to make things last long. I mean, we've been putting hog maws and chitlins for. I mean, we've been putting cornstarch. I mean, we know how to stretch and survive because we've been surviving for so long. So it ain't nothing new, right? That's what makes us human beings is our abilities to adapt. But we figured that out because we understand the spiritual aspect of religion, because we understand that even in the wilderness, God leads. While I was up on my couch, I still heard him speak. And he was trying to get me to one place. And that one place he got me to was the mirror. I needed to see it for myself. Let me see what Charlotte said. Praise saints. She said, when I was in the hospital 9 months, oh yeah, and told I'd never walk again. You've a witness. I'm walking. Oh yes, Lord, preaching again. You cause you prayed, and I love you. Oh yeah, absolutely. And she was, and she's at church at most Sundays now. She's singing on the praise team because that's a miracle. That's a miracle. Miracle. If you're gonna call, you better hurry up and call. Cause I ain't gonna lie, I'm about to go to bed in a few minutes. But I'll talk as long as y'all talk. But that's where I'm at, man. And I want us to understand there are certain lilies that only grow in the valley. So if you're in the wilderness, while you're in the wilderness, learn wilderness tactics, right? At least learn how to pitch a tent. At least learn how to rub two sticks together and make some fire. If you're in the wilderness, learn wilderness tactics. I went through an extended wilderness. I came out with a couple of degrees. Now I came out with some debt behind it too, but I came out with a couple of degrees. I got two children that have finished college and one who's, making good money. So if I'm in the wilderness, that's not the time. That's why they talk about, during recessions, that's the time really to buy, to buy a whole lot of stock in the stock, things why everything is down, because they figure things are going to get better. Does that make sense? While you're down, that's not okay. He's calling y'all. Let me get this call. Hold on. May not come. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, Mello. Let me get you on the screen. Hold on. What is going on here? That's not it. They changed some things. Yeah, hold on. I got a caller. I'm about to bring him in 1 second. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart. It happens, bro. I'm human. Somebody was trying to get me to have a real good show. I'm like, I don't have the mental capacity to do that tonight. All right, we got Mello on the phone. Let's see what's going on. Talk to us, Mello.
What's up, guys? Hey, man, I'm sitting here in my car outside the gym, and you struck a nerve with that being stuck on the couch, man, and God's still moving, bro. Have you? I don't know. Everybody has like a lapse in faith or a struggle where you just kind of walk away from everything, you know, like I experienced like church hurt before, like really bad here recently, and it's like God's like, man, what are you doing? Like you don't go to church for like other people and stuff. You know, church is messy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've started going back like here in the last couple of months, man, my faith has increased like substantially. Like I don't know what's going on. It's just something like something just telling you, you know, like I'm about to move, so you need to be on the same page, you know. And I've seen God's goodness, bro. I've seen him. For an example, we took my daughter when she was little, and this kind of rekindled when you were talking about your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like she had a heart murmur. We took her to the doctor. She had a heart murmur, and my wife at the time was just freaking out. And I just got on my knees and prayed, man, and I was just praying like almost kind of like your brother, except I didn't look at him like, you know, he Leonard to me. I mean, that's a different kind of faith, man. I applaud that. That was deep.
He messed me up with that one.
Yeah, but I was like, you know, God, whatever your will is, just show me how to walk through this. You know what I mean? And help me to help her get through this. You know what I mean? But dude, he took me to the verse in scripture with Jairus and his daughter.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, when God was just like, just believe me, you know what I mean? And it's done. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So I just kept walking, like, I just kept walking, like, you know, I would let her go out and play and stuff. And my wife was like, no. And I was like, hey, she's fine. Just let her go be a kid. She's good. Don't worry about it. So it was crazy because the same day she was going to the cardiologist.
Yes, sir.
So she was going to the cardiologist. I had to have my first leg surgery, same day. So man, I got out of surgery, man, and I was calling my wife, and I was like, "Yo, what they say?" And she was like, "The cardiologist said he don't know what the doctor was talking about. Her heart is fine and strong." And I was just like, "Oh my God!"
Wow.
I was like, "Man, if you don't come through when you say you're gonna come through, oh my goodness,
man."
So yeah, man, it's things going on in my life now, bro. Where like I've been in this depression, dude, from like all these leg surgeries. Like I ain't ever gonna be able to lift like the way I used to lift, or do CrossFit, or run right, or whatever for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of had me in a funk, you know. But here gradually, man, I've been coming to the gym. I'm feeling stronger. I'm like, okay, you know, maybe I ain't ready to run yet, but hey, I'm walking. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir. That's good stuff.
And I guess the moral is just keep walking through the struggles, and like you said, the process earlier, just keep going forward through it. You know what I mean? And he gonna bring you through the other side. You know, you just gotta keep on keeping on. That's all. You know what I'm saying? So
it works,
yeah, man.
It works, man. I remember that story about your daughter. And I mean, like I said, and I know Mello, y'all. Mello used to be a mess back in the day, boy. Mello wasn't no joke. You ain't want to run up on. Look, Mello was a Mexican cat, but he hung around all brothers. He was in Windermere. That was a little area that they were in. Mello was not one of them dudes you wanted to go with. Mello grew up fast, right? But I looked up later on in life, Mello was in Arizona, and you know he was talking about faith, and to hear him say that he had fallen away from the faith for a season. And then he came back. You know what's interesting about that, man? I was reading that Exodus 34 text one day, man. It talked about, and I liken this to the pandemic, because in that text it said that because of poor leadership, that God was going to cause the sheep to scatter. They would go in many different directions, and I saw that as a falling away from the church. But it also said in the same chapter that at a certain point he was going to cause a U-turn. And all those people who left were going to come back. And when they came back, they were going to come back with pure hearts and right spirits. And they wasn't going to be playing with it. You know what I'm saying? They weren't going to be impressed by this and that. All they wanted was more God. You know, it's like going to the gas station. You go to the gas station. I don't go to the gas station to go shopping. I go to the gas station to get gas, right? So when I come to church, I ain't really trying to hang out. When he do the benediction, they said, now unto him, I'm halfway to my car. I ain't trying to kick it and all that. You know what I'm saying? But I came to get what I came to get. And I think as a culture, as we start to understand how to really plug in, and it's necessary, right? I mean, it's like if you have a Mercedes, but you go on the racetrack getting 87, putting cheap gas in your car, what's gonna happen?
Oh yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
damage the engine. And if we don't get to
Yeah.
the church house or get to some type of form of fellowship or something that's gonna fuel our spirit, what happens? We're gonna eventually, our car, our motor is gonna get, it's not gonna perform at the optimum, And so I don't have that testimony. I never got mad. I got mad at people in the church, but I never got mad at the church. You know what I'm saying? So I was probably a glutton for punishment. You know what I'm saying? Because I had people who were straight up doing me wrong, and I knew they were doing me wrong, but I kept showing up because I felt like that was my obligation. I don't know.
I mean, James, I took the proper motivations from the Spirit, bro, and went back to the church I had experienced this hurt from, because the lead pastor, he's a street cat, bro. He's from Queens. The brother, part Jamaican. Part of his testimony is he used to be in the streets beating up cops. I mean,
oh wow,
this cat he's come a long way. Used to be in like the 5% of faith and all that kind of stuff. And so I went back, man, and I straight up said, man, I need to talk to you after service. And he's like, okay, man, you got it. You got my ear, I was like, all right. So, man, I went back and I said, yo, it's really been on my heart to come back and say, I need to forgive and ask your forgiveness. Wow. And he was like, what you talking about? I'm like, bro, I felt a lot of stuff in my heart towards the church. Like I moved away, and it's like nobody reaches out and like, hey, how you doing? You just feel abandoned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I need forgiveness, because what I was feeling was, I don't know what's been going on in your life or anybody else's life. You know what I'm saying? For me to feel that way is stupid, kind of. You know what I mean? So he was like, man, he was like, I appreciate that. And come to find out, he was going through stuff where they almost lost his mother-in-law and stuff like that, man. And I was like,
bro,
I was like, man, I was like, okay. But he was like, dude, that I was one of the biggest reasons why him and his family uprooted from where they was at their church and joined our church.
Bro.
And he was like, man, you always get a special place with me. Like,
right,
dude, if you need me, bro. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but that's my point that I made earlier. That's why chapter 50, Joseph, and chapter 37, Joseph, were two totally different people. Chapter 50, because see, when you go back and you apologize because of a decision that you made in a hurt state, that's why it's not good to make decisions while you're panicking, or when you're upset, or when you're depressed, because you're making a decision from an unhealed place. You're making a determination from an unhealed place, and unhealed, and we, I know it ain't Bible, but we always say that the mind is the devil's playground. But that's what he tries to do. He tries to get us to think wrong is right. He tries to think us that to think that good is evil. He tries to get us to think conversely, and when we do that, we end up drawing conclusions where we should have been putting up question marks.
Yeah. We make, hey, here goes another one for you. We make conclusions from confusion.
Dennis, give him some bars. He deserve it. Give him some bars on that one. Dennis always calls bars when somebody said something. When you say it one more time. We make conclusions while we're in the midst of confusion. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
All right with that, man. I'm gonna let you go, Mello. I'm gonna see if anybody else want to call in. If they don't, I'm gonna call it a night. But I appreciate you, bro.
Right.
We do this every Monday night. You make sure you keep calling in, okay?
All right, man. I got you, bro.
All right, bro. Appreciate you. All right, man. That's my dude, Mello, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate him calling in. See, this is what open mic night's all about. It's about you calling in, and you're able to share your testimony. He shared his testimony. He said he left the church. But don't leave him at leaving. He also went back. And when he went back right. He went back and apologized and realized that his apology was necessary because it cleared up a lot of confusion. Because he made a conclusion from confusion. That's what he just said. He made a conclusion from confusion, and making that because he said people didn't reach out to him. Sometimes they don't. It's like I tell people, I'm not depending on the White House to take care of my house. I'm a survivor. But figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I'm gonna say it like I said the whole time my daddy was going through his thing. I know a man. Yeah, Lord. I know a man, I promise you, that will get me out. And I still believe. Here it is. I still believe in modern day miracles. Oh, yes, I do. I believe in modern day miracles. I believe that just like he was doing miracles back then, he's still doing miracles right now. I believe that. And because I believe that, I don't think that there's not one problem too hard that God can't solve. And he'll use me. He'll use you. I've had people. That whole event I did in Arkansas. I ain't paid hardly anything on that. I ain't make no money, but it didn't cost me anything. And I had people that were donating buildings and donating services, and I mean paying off. I mean, it was amazing. That was a miracle. And whenever I see a miracle, I build an altar. What's an altar? That's where I praise him right there. I give him thanks for what he did, because I know I couldn't have done it by myself. I don't really want that much credit. I don't want that much power. I want to be able to defer to somebody. Oh yeah, Mello, I know a man. Yes, I do. I know a man, and I continue to know him, and I will continue to know him, and I'll continue to share, and hopefully it makes sense, and hopefully these numbers start to grow, because some people come on here and they need a safe space where they want to share their testimony. And listen, tonight we've heard two testimonies. We've heard Dennis's testimony about his son, who was 1 year old. Y'all, this man prayed, God, I know my son is an angel. Son had a seizure for the first time, for those that just come that haven't heard it. I know my son is an angel. And if you need him back, take him. But thank you for the year you loaned him to us. And said it in faith, while everybody else was crying and were acting out and doing what they were supposed to do, because it's a natural reaction. If you see one of your loved ones who's struggling to breathe, panicking. Ugh. Man, let me tell you something. Hold on. Mello just said, he said, my faith feels so different now. I listen to worship at the gym, and I be in there weeping and working. Folks looking at me crazy. But that's based on the context of your experience. And experience will produce different type results. I'm so bulletproof in my faith, man. I'm telling you. I know I say crazy stuff like that my stress level goes down the more my middle finger goes up, because I defend my faith vehemently. I'm an apologist. I defend my faith. I don't like you talking about the church, because the church is an inanimate object. The church ain't did nothing to nobody. People in the church did it. And your problem is not with the church. Your problem with people in the church. People. And if you got a problem with people in the church, you got a problem with people on the job, you got people at the grocery store, you got a problem with people driving down the street. As long as you got problems. I feel like going on. Not something like that. No trials come. I'm tired. I'm for real. On every hand, I feel like. Cool. Anybody else got a phone call before I get off this here tonight? Listen, we've talked about a lot tonight, but at the end of the day, all of us have either gone through something, some of us are going through something, and some of us are going to go through something. It's who knows, but the challenge is to, when fear comes, here it is. This is a good one to close on. This is a good one to close on. Let me turn my music on and close on this one. I want to close with some sound. This is a good one to close on. Let me turn down low though. Hopefully it don't mess up my voice. But here it is. Let me turn it down. But this is, y'all still hear me. If y'all still hear me, put a one. But here it is. This is the challenge to get to a point where you can hear the to hear and recognize. I'm not putting one in the chat if y'all can't hear me say but the challenge is to be able to hear and recognize the voice of God. But here's the problem. The reason why a lot of us can't recognize the voice of God is because there's Does that make sense? The reason why some of us cannot hear and recognize the voice of God is because there's too much noise. We think that we're supposed to hear him in the thunder and in the lightning, in the whirlwind and in the earthquake and through the fire. Like God's gonna always show up in this theophany. He's gonna come, on a cloud and with white chariots and all these things. We're looking for him to show up like that, but God don't always show up like that. AJ, he don't always show up like that. Dennis, sometimes he shows up with a still small voice, and the reason we miss it is because there's too much noise in our lives. When we learn how to turn down the noise, then his voice will be amplified in our lives. And I'm going to tell you something. You will be able to hear him clearly. And what does hearing him clearly allow you to do? It allows you to become aware and cognizant of your purpose. Pain don't feel like pain when you understand that pain is a part of the process that is propelling you towards your purpose. You know why? Pain doesn't feel like pain as much. Pain doesn't feel like pain as much is because it's profitable. I didn't understand it until I saw the miracle of childbirth. I didn't understand it. But when I saw the miracle of childbirth, I saw somebody struggling in pain, crying. But when that baby came out, those tears of pain turned into tears of joy. The anguish from the pain turned into a smile because they understood that the pain was profitable. Can I close with this? And I'm closing. Y'all say good night to me. When you realize that the pain is profitable because it's propelling you towards your purpose, you can handle the pain a little bit better. Listen, I'm about to roll. Good night. Remember this, the world is changing. My question for you is, why do you remain the same? I love y'all. Y'all have a good night. We'll catch you on the way.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical,
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual